When British sailor Pip Hare sailed back into Les Sables d'Olonne last year, she'd realised a lifelong dream. She'd sailed non-stop around the world alone and completed the Vendée Globe. But crossing the finishing line was just the start, because, as it's been impossible to miss, Pip is back and working towards the next Vendée Globe. I caught up with her ahead of the Vendée Arctique, an extraordinary 3,500 mile race from the west coast of France around Iceland and back. Well, Pip, here we are, Les Sables d'Olonne. A lot has changed since you were last here.
Just a bit.
I mean, first of all, what does it feel like to be back?
Oh, it has been such a great week. I've really enjoyed being part of a community, which is what we missed last time. You know, having the village open, but also the presence of all of the other skippers and the teams. And, you know, no massive interactions, but just being able to walk down the dock and say good morning to people and have a little chat, and the constant flow of people through the village, it just feels so good.
And there's a real buzz here, isn't there? I mean, I suppose we shouldn't be surprised because there's always a buzz here for the Vendée Globe and other major events, but you can just feel it.
It's a celebration and an excitement, and everyone's really intrigued by the course too, because we're doing something different. You know, how many courses go around Iceland? It really is something different. So I think everyone's kind of inspired by a sense of adventure, but also there's always a curiosity about these boats and about the teams and the skippers and stuff. And so people just come because they just want to see it, I guess.
And what, give us an overview of what's happened with your campaign since you were last here, because when you were last here, huge celebration that having got round, but lots changed since then.
Wow, yes, yeah. I mean, I finished the last Vendée fairly sure that I wanted to do another one, not fairly sure, very sure. And, you know, luckily Medallia felt the same. And so kind of almost straight away, we started looking for a new boat. And we bought Bureau Valet from Louis, which is the boat that actually holds the Vendée course record. So 2015 VPLP Verdier design with small foils. We took ownership of that in June, had a very small refit, and then the rest of last year we spent kind of getting to know the boat but also growing the team, because we didn't have a team before. And then fairly big refit over the winter, just kind of making the boat strong and back to its kind of original glory. And then this year has been full on. I've done a lot of training, a training period in Portugal, and then the first race and straight into the second run after that. So it's kind of been, I'm running to catch up all the time, but you know, completely different feeling to have a sponsor, a boat, a team. It's all different.
And the Vendée Globe is still just over 2 years away, isn't it? And yet it feels like it's a relentless push to get there. Already the race has started.
It really is, and you know, one of the comments I get a lot is, oh, you must feel so relaxed having so much time. It's not relaxing. Yeah, I mean, this class has absolutely boomed. There is so much interest in it. And the Vendée, they were restricted on numbers largely because of the space in Les Sables d'Olonne, but they've invested in the infrastructure here. So now there are 40 places open to the Vendée, but around 52 teams interested at the moment. Wow. And so we all have to qualify. We've got to qualify for those places. And even the skippers that finished last time, so up until this year, the rule has been if you finish the last Vendée, you automatically got a place in the next one. They've changed that rule now completely, and even those of us who finished the last one have still got to qualify for the next one.
Wow, and so what's the pathway then? What have you got to do to qualify?
So it's slightly complicated. There are 40 places, and 13 of those are going to new build boats. And then there is one wild card on top of that. So effectively 14 places are not open to me. So I'm competing for one of the 26 places, and on paper all we need to do is finish a qualification race in 2022 or 2023 and one in 2024. But if more than 26 boats meet those criteria, then it's worked out on cumulative mileage sailed in IMOCA Globe races. So basically, we've all got to hit the ground running and start finishing races.
Wow, that's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I guess that's really tough also for for teams that are looking for sponsorship because they can't guarantee that they're going to be in the race.
Yeah, and you see here, there's a couple of boats here that don't have sponsors, and those guys have actually taken the approach that I took to the last Vendée, which was just to get out there, get qualified, get a place, and kind of, I guess, eliminate the risk then for the investment of a sponsor. But that's tough because it costs money to sail in all of these races, and so all the time you're kind of managing this tightrope of trying to keep a boat afloat, trying to find funding. It's hard, it's really hard.
Talking of how difficult it is trying to manage all these things, it's also, I guess, quite tricky with the boats themselves because they're notoriously fragile, they're racing machines after all. How difficult is it spinning the plates between knowing that you need to qualify, but actually you also need to push the boat quite hard, and if you risk breaking something, that could upset your whole campaign?
Yeah, I mean, as ever, it's a fine line to tread, and especially I think for someone like me, because I'm based in the UK, proud to be based in the UK, but one of the things that I lack is the interaction with the other boats and the opportunity to do speed trials and stuff like that. So these races are one of the primary opportunities where I get to gauge relative performance with other boats. But as you say, the overall goal is qualification. I mean, in a way, it is kind of like I guess a scaled down version of the Vendée itself, because all the time during those 3 months you're balancing that risk of pushing hard versus not finishing. So I think in general, I think we'll find that the sailors, so there are sailors who know they've got new boats coming, and maybe their attitude to risk might be different. But I think there's a huge amount of people who have a limited budget, who are looking at the big picture, who are just not going to have their foot to the floor for this race.
And I guess the most important thing is finishing this race, I guess, is it?
Yes, it is. Even if you don't finish, then you're allowed to bank the miles, but you don't qualify unless you finish.
Right.
So.
It's a fascinating course, as you mentioned earlier on. I mean, it takes the fleet further north than the Vendée Globe goes south, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I mean, we've all watched the weather charts across the top of Iceland, and it's a pretty ballsy place, punchy place to go, isn't it? I mean, is it a daunting course? How do you feel about it?
I think it is daunting because the track of those low pressure systems basically goes straight between the top of Scotland and Iceland, and they are meaty lows that barrel through there. The sea state in the Denmark Strait between Greenland and Iceland is notoriously horrible, and our weather briefing this morning was about ice and whales as well. So
no pressure.
But I think it becomes a race of the head, as well as just of kind of pure muscle. And actually, I'm genuinely excited by going and sailing somewhere I haven't been before. Yeah.
It's what's your objective for the race?
I came out of the last race kind of I really struggled a bit in the last race because I think I focused too much on my positioning in the fleet as my objective.
When you say the last race, which race is that?
The Bermude Meal, which was the first race of the season, and I've kind of just re-grounded myself. And this race, on paper, this boat is a mid-fleet boat because I've got small foils, and there's only two boats in the fleet with small foils still. Oh no, 3. And so, I know that's where the boat should be. If I could outperform it, that would be fantastic. But I'm still quite new. This is a journey for me. What I really want to see from myself is development through the race. I want to see that I get on the pace, stay on the pace, improve, really think about strategic decisions, and managing the physical effort of sailing the boat well. So kind of, I think my objectives are more internal than kind of in position and placing, I think.
Do you think that boats like yours are at less of a disadvantage against the modern foil boats because the course is not like the Vendée Globe? There's not a huge amount of downwind reaching, so presumably you are at less of a disadvantage.
Yes, I think, and you know, I think that small foil boats and also non-foil boats. I mean, this boat to my right, Nico Lundvin in Bangkok Lit, I think he's going to do very, very well. He's an exceptional sailor. It's a really well prepared boat, and there's going to be quite a bit of upwind in this course and some downwind VMG, and then the foils really have less impact.
I mean, we saw last year, didn't we, in the Ocean Race Europe that you did 2 legs on. Actually, the non-foiling boat, the German boat, actually did, when it was light and tricky, was way quicker.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing to remember, is that the IMOCA Globe series is a completely different set of races and conditions to the Vendée. And, you know, for me, it is all about the Vendée. And so the decisions that I'm making and the way I'm setting my boat up and the training and the things that I want to establish are actually taking me towards the Vendée, because that's always been my objective. It doesn't mean I don't care about these races, because they're invaluable training opportunities and development opportunities. But, you know, I might make decisions to equip my boat in a way that is, I guess, you know, detrimental to the shorter courses or the upwind courses, but because I'm just thinking about the Vendée.
Give us a quick overview of who you think stands out in the fleet. Well, two areas actually. One is, who do you think stands out in the fleet as the sort of absolute favourites, and who you'll be focusing on? Maybe it's the same people.
Well, I think probably it's, you know, in terms of the standouts in the fleet, then you've got a top 4, which are Charlie Dallan, who is just absolutely king of the roost at the moment. He's an immaculate sailor on an immaculate boat.
That's a Pivot, isn't it?
Yes, a Pivot, yeah. And then Jeremy Biu in Charal, and Thomas Rion in Linked Out, and then Louis, you know, because Louis is just, you know, I was saying earlier, Louis sails from the heart. You know, he pushes like nobody else pushes, and he's got a really quick boat. And I think, you know, sometimes kind of conditions don't always suit his style of sailing, but I would never, ever, ever write him off. And Nico, definitely in a non-foiling boat. You know, he's an exceptional sailor with a Bank Populaire preparation behind him. I mean, in terms of who I'm focusing on, then I'm focusing on the pack of boats that are similar to mine. So it's really interesting across our boats, because so Damien Sagan has the same boat as I do, and he hasn't done any modifications yet. And then Giancarlo has modified 6 metres of bow, so it'd be really interesting to see how he goes. Fabrice has put Hugo Boss's old foils in, so the sea foils, he's got those in. And then also Benjamin Dutroux in Guyot, which was 11th hour, and previous to that the Hugo Boss that came second to this boat. He's got big foils, and Fortinet, Roman Atanasio, so he's the same hull as this, but big foils. So just, you know, they're the people that I'm watching and I'm gauging relative performance from.
Plenty of people to line up against, isn't there?
Shall I say everyone?
It sounds like it's going to be a fascinating race, isn't it? It's going to be.
Yeah, and it's a good length as well. I'm much happier with a race of this length. You know, I was never a Figaro sailor. I was always a mini sailor, and you know, I think a lot of that is because I much prefer the longer races. I'm an endurance athlete in all events. I'm an endurance athlete, so you know, it just takes me a bit of time to warm up, and I'm used to the more kind of steady, regular pace rather than the short and sharp. So better for me. Yeah.
Good. Well, we wish you all the best. It's great to see you down here. Great to see you with your boat. Great to hear your plans.
Thank you.
Can't wait to watch it.
It'd be good.